Are you ready? Oh, I'm ready. Are you ready?
I'm ready. Are you ready?
Let's do this.
Let's do this thing, man.
The League Podcast.
Yeah.
Hey guys, how you doing? You got J&D here with the League Podcast.
Yeah, buddy.
We are jumping into waiver wire ads this week as well as tons of injuries. But before anything, go follow us on our website, www.theleaguefantasyfootball.wordpress.com. And on there, you'll find all of our social medias, which you can then follow us on those, at The League Podcast for Instagram and Facebook, and at The League Pod for Twitter. And like I told you guys last week, Jake is on top of that Twitter.
Heavy.
Sending out starts, sits, what you got to do, act a fool. Anyways.
Did you see this week? We went ham with our predictions
got a
on
couple
Twitter.
Followers, extra followers on top of it, people thanking you.
That's
You making great calls on Mr. Calvin Ridley.
Oh my gosh, do we have someone to talk about today?
Mr.
I was telling people
Calvin
to
Ridley.
start Calvin Ridley on Twitter, and oh my, did it pay off. It worked out really well. Was Calvin Ridley the highest scoring fantasy player this week?
I believe he was, yes.
Scored 40 points. He is the highest fantasy scoring player. Alvin Kamara, obviously, closely behind him with 34. And quarterback-wise, Drew Brees scored 40.5. So actually, Calvin and Drew Brees tie at 40.5 points for most points scored.
I'll take that all day. Especially if you play him in your waiver, or if you pick him up right before the game starts and you put him in your slot. And that's exactly what I did, with the help of my brother, Jay. Obviously I picked him up and I wanted to do it, but I needed to get that assurance. I needed to get that, do it, Dylan. Just play him. And, it was between him and Demaryius Thomas, so it seems like Demaryius Thomas is the easy choose or easy pick there, safest bet.
Yeah, if you're a Joe Schmo,
and if you're playing, your buddy who loves the Broncos, who, you're trying to trade with him. You're trying to give him Demaryius Thomas. So you want to start him and have him go off so that you say, hey, I tried trading you for him. But glad I didn't do that, because at the end of the day, playing Mike, like you said, it would be awesome to be Demaryius. But you said if you want that W, it should be Ridley in my position. Well, I ended up winning by about, I want to say 30 points. So if I didn't play Ridley and I played Demaryius Thomas, I would have lost.
Yeah.
So
really?
Yes. So if I didn't play Ridley and played Demaryius Thomas, who got like 11 points, I probably would have lost.
Wow, look at that. And I think we both knew Ridley had that potential this week coming into a home game, coming off a huge game, that he was going to break out again this week. He sure did. And I think it paid off for you. It paid off for a lot of people on Twitter that I recommended it to. So that was a great start to the weekend, having him go off.
Oh my gosh, I'm jumping up and down, just like, yeah! Texting Jake, like, there's number 2.
Yep.
I need number 3. Oh, there's number 3.
So, oh my gosh, that was crazy. He went off. So if he's still on your waiver wire, that's a must-add right there. If he's still on there, that is crazy. Because we're going to be talking about some guys that are still on your waiver wire. Calvin Ridley being one of them. His percentage owned in Yahoo leagues is only 45%. He's owned in owned in less than half of the leagues out there. Go get him if he's out there, because he's going to continue to flourish. Beautiful Cincinnati matchup next week. They're playing at home again. I love him at home, and I think he's going to continue to flourish. Anything to say about Rid?
Yeah, obviously grabbing him is amazing. I'm so stoked, and I'm so bummed at the same time, because we have a dynasty league, and you went and picked him up right after we had talked, and I can't believe I didn't go do it.
In the dynasty league, that means I will have him for life, and I'm so happy about that. He's going to develop into a next Julio when Julio is long gone, but for the meantime, he's a beautiful compliment. I look at it like DeAndre Hopkins learning behind Andre Johnson. I see that same kind of connection and built and relationship between Calvin Ridley and Julio Jones. So that, and obviously Andre Johnson was definitely more on the back half of his career than I think Julio is, but I still think there's a lot to learn from him. So yeah, go grab Calvin if he's out there. We could get into waivers, or should we jump into injuries a little more? What do you think?
Oh yeah, let's maybe cover.
We just got excited with these waiver Calvin Ridley.
Ridley, he just had such a big week, and he is that number one guy you got to grab. So speaking of injuries, Tough one for fantasy is Jimmy Garoppolo, torn ACL, confirmed this morning. He's out for the year. So
Dang.
that is a big bummer for a lot of people who drafted Jimmy Garoppolo pretty high in their drafts. Thankfully, there's a decent couple people on the waiver wire, and there's a couple up and coming guys on that waiver wire still available that we'll kind of touch base on later on today at the quarterback position.
Yeah,
Also,
that's tough though. That's a tough loss for them because I mean, with Beathard stepping up now as their quarterback, I don't think he is anything to win.
Very
for them.
mediocre.
On top of that, on the other side of the ball, Richard Sherman, he's going to be out for a few weeks as well. He has a calf strain. He's going to be at least a few weeks, hopefully. And, Richard Sherman.
He's older, so it might take him longer to heal.
Exactly. You got lingering stuff with him. So they got hit both sides of the ball. That really hurts that 49ers offense and defense team all around. So let's see who steps up for these guys to try and start winning them some games.
Seriously, though. And then, obviously, the Rams lost two of their guys on the weekend, both starting corners, so that is a huge hit to our team, especially going into Thursday Night Football against the Vikings.
Short week.
Stephon Diggs and Adam Thielen with Kirk Cousins playing at a high level, even though last week
coming off an ugly game.
They came off an ugly game. Their offensive line is not looking good.
The Vikings.
So and without Dalvin Cook last week, he's their star running back, and he makes such a difference as we saw last week. Everyone thought Latavius could jump right in because he did a pretty good job last year. But, I definitely think if Dalvin plays this week, that'll be a lot better for them. But also, without our two starting corners, that helps them. But their line sucks. Our defense will get to them. We've got good, solid backups. Sam Shields, Troy Hill, Nicole Roby-Coleman. He's a great corner still out there. It hurts, though. It does. It definitely, especially the value of the Rams defense goes down just a little bit. But I'm still going to start them. I think their defensive line is good enough to, help
exploit
with that.
Vikings offense being as banged up as they are. And if Dalvin Cook doesn't play, that's just even more an advantage, obviously, for that Rams D.
Yeah, definitely.
So that'll be something to watch out for, that Dalvin Cook. Unsure if he's going to be playing or not. But another injury is to a defensive player, a Packer. And it was so sad to see him go down. Muhammad Wilkerson, gruesome ankle injury, and he went straight into surgery after the game. He's going to be out for the year, which is a huge hit to our defense. Obviously, we're going to have to switch it up. I watched them. They went from having 3 different defensive linemen running a 3-4 to then only having 2 defensive linemen and having the outside backers fill in as the ends, Clay Matthews and Nick Perry, because Muhammad Wilkerson's out. So we have to totally change our defensive game plan now that he's not going to be on the team for the year. So that definitely hurts.
Yeah, that's a huge hit to the defense. He is on a prove-it deal, so he was coming out hard. Definitely. He was playing hard.
And he was definitely playing hard, and it hurts because our defense looked strong up to this point. Really was holding their ground, and this is exactly what you don't want to see as injuries already starting in week 3. So hopefully we can stand still with those injuries and just continue rolling on. But let's get into a tight end here who took it pretty gnarly injury, but he's week to week. He has a sprained MCL, which is really good news, actually, because, obviously it could have been a lot worse. So that's Mr. Evan Ingram. He's going to be out at least this week. He, like I said, MCL sprain, and that's where maybe the backup, Rhett Ellison, could be involved maybe a little more. Once he went down, against the Texans, he caught 3 passes for 39 yards and a touchdown. So he's definitely someone that could just step up into that offense.
Yeah.
With Evan Ingram being out.
For sure. Definitely. I mean, Rhett Ellison, nothing special, but Eli likes to throw to his tight end, and that offense is designed to throw the ball to their tight end. Mm-hmm. So I would definitely go grab Rhett Ellison, at least a streamer for the next few weeks if you have to.
Yeah.
He is on our waiver wire, so might as well jump right into that, and talk about some more tight ends, because last week we got ripped on. We got ripped on by
yeah, I mean, people want their tight ends on waiver wire, and especially this week with injuries happening to tight ends, and not to mention, we got bye weeks starting this week, ladies and gentlemen. Week 4, you better believe it, you're out players already. I got Cam out and Jordan Reed out this week due to bye week, so you're going to need some people to plug and play. for, bye weeks coming up on top of these injuries. So who's another tight end that you're really liking, Dill?
I like Benjamin Watson a lot. Obviously, he had that breakout year a few years back with the Saints with Drew Brees, and obviously Drew Brees plays at such a high level, and Benjamin Watson is still playing at a high level. He looks like he's 25 years old, yet he's 35 years old. So I give the guy props. Last week was the best game of the year for him. He's gotten over 4 targets in each game, 4, 5, and 6. It's going up every week. Their defense is not looking as solid as it did last year, so I think they will be in a little bit more of a shootouts. So Benjamin Watson is a safe blanket for Drew Brees when he wants to check it down or he wants to give it that first down or whatever it may be. Could end up being a nice red zone target too, even though freaking Michael Thomas and Alvin Kamara, those two guys are just eating. Those guys are eating in that offense and nobody can stop them. But with guys like that, it takes a lot of attention off a guy like Benjamin Watson. So, once again, if you need a tight end, he's only owned in 44% of Yahoo leagues. So, go grab him. He's definitely – I know there's some of you guys out there that have to stream a tight end every single week. He's playing against the Giants this week. And, Giants aren't – I mean, I guess they're doing a lot better this year than they did last year. But last year, they were one of the worst teams against tight ends. So, it's only been a few games in the year. I still think that he could have a big game because – the Saints will score a lot of points.
Definitely.
But
I agree. And he's getting targets. Every week he's gained an extra target. Week 1, 4, week 2, 5, and week 3 he had 6 targets. So on 70 yards. So I definitely think that's someone that you should be starting if you're streaming tight ends, just like you said.
Yeah, it's not bad whatsoever. Let's get into our next one, last tight end that he's widely available, and he's not even the number 1 tight end on this offense.
No, and, I think he's going to develop into something special. We're talking about Dallas, and not coming out of Dallas Cowboys. We're talking about Gallus Goedert.
Go Dirt.
Go Dirt, whatever you want to call it. He's on the Philadelphia Eagles. He's a rookie this year.
He is.
And he's looks like he's been in that offense for years. They look comfortable throwing him the ball. Obviously, Zach Ertz and Aguilar didn't even get looked at, but those other guys in that offense are going to take away from Dallas, just like we were talking about with Benjamin Watson. So this guy's coming off a huge game. Scored a touchdown, obviously. He has scored 20.3 fantasy points, caught all 7 of his targets for 73 yards and a touchdown. That's volume right there. And Carson Wentz is proven to love his tight ends, whether it was Trey Burton or Zach Ertz, whoever's out there, he's loving his tight ends. So
this offense runs the most 2 tight end sets. They throw it to their tight end more than any other team. Carson Wentz, I watched the entire game, and I have Nelson Aguilar, so it's so disappointing because if he wasn't going to Zach Ertz, he was going to Dallas Goedert.
Yeah.
And if he wasn't going to Dallas Goedert or Goedert or whatever, he was going to the 3rd tight end, Adams or whatever, number 83. I don't even remember his name, but it was so frustrating to watch. He didn't even look at his receivers. He is all about, I think he's trying to get the ball out quick. They're doing those quick routes, but he did throw an interception because of it, and he almost threw a second interception by just staring at his tight ends and just trying to force it to him. So,
yeah.
If I need a tight end, this is my number 1 guy out of all 3 of these guys that I'm going to go get. But
I disagree with that. I would get him probably last out of the guys I would get. I think
Ellison, he has the most upside for the rest of the year.
He does.
So
I'm just
that's
looking
why
at
I would get him.
This matchup, and I like the rest of the year. Definitely, I'm looking at if you're just plugging and playing. You have a tight end on a bye week. I don't love this guy this week. Like there's Jared Cook on our waiver wire. I don't know if he's still available on yours, but I'd probably start him over Dallas just simply because they're facing the Tennessee Titans this week, who have given up the least amount of fantasy points to tight ends.
Yeah.
Mind you, though, there's options in this offense to where Dallas is probably going to be the one that eats because they're focused on other guys. So
like I said,
he could be the one that definitely succeeds this week. But due to a really tough Titans defense when it comes to battling tight ends, I'm looking at guys maybe like a Jared Cook or a Benjamin Watson. I really like as well.
And
then I'd go Dallas.
Really
I'd go Dallas before I go Red Ellison, I think, as well, just because of that upside. But definitely. So after these tight ends, Dill, I kind of want to get into these quarterbacks, all right? Because we've seen some shootouts here. Not shootouts, but we've seen these young bucks emerge, all right? Well, we could start with Patrick Mahomes first off because he's on fire. He's been on fire, and guess what? The train has not stopped. This man is going ham, and he's using every single person on that offense to make sure they're involved. And using them the right way. He's set an NFL record for 13 touchdown passes through the first 3 games. There's no reason to expect a significant slowdown in Week 4 against the Broncos defense that's allowed 102 quarterback ratings so far. 22nd in the league. I mean, Patrick Mahomes is going to shred this defense, and it's sad to say because I have Denver in one of them, but huge matchup, and Denver is giving up the 17th most fantasy points to quarterbacks this season. So I'm definitely intrigued by him, and I don't think he's stopping anytime soon. I'm loving everybody on that offense. Kelsey, even Hill, even though Hill's coming off a down game, there's still going to be those games where he's scoring 30 points.
2 weeks in a row now,
Not to
scoring a
mention
touchdown.
Sammy, of course.
Chris Connolly scoring touchdowns.
2 now, all right?
Travis Kelce scoring touchdowns. I mean,
Kareem Hunt.
scoring touchdowns.
That's going to be...
that offense is eating.
Them and the Saints are both just such high-scoring teams, and like I said, I really don't think Mahomes is going anywhere. So he's a young guy. We're going to talk about one old vet buck real quick, and this is your boy, Dill, Ryan Fitzmagic.
Ryan Fitzmagic, I mean,
he don't
setting
stop
the world
either.
on fire. Yeah, yesterday it came out. Everyone was scared. Twitter was going crazy. People were talking smack.
Fitz tragic.
Oh, my gosh. I mean, come on now. Give the guy a break. Came out firing on all cylinders. One of the only quarterbacks to ever throw for 400 yards in 3 consecutive games since Tom Brady in 2011. I mean, come on. This guy is setting the world on fire. I love this Harvard grad. I mean, this little preppy boy over here, did you see that picture of him when he first came to the league, when he was on the Rams?
Oh my gosh,
bald,
so
no
funny.
facial hair at all, a little chubby. I mean, this guy, I love him. I picked him up. He's on my roster. I have a Carson Wentz who didn't set me on fire last week, so I'll definitely hold on to him. And, I mean, hopefully he keeps the job. I don't see why he wouldn't, because Jameson is coming back from his suspension.
Mm-hmm.
But, man.
And I know this guy. I mean, okay, we're talking about right now through 3 weeks. It's only been three weeks, but he is ranked the number 1 fantasy football player out of anybody right now. Anyone. We're talking Antonio Brown. We're talking Odell Beckham. We're talking Todd Gurley. We're talking
Aaron Rodgers, Tom Brady.
We're talking he's the ranked number 1 in fantasy football right now. So if he's still on your freaking waiver wire and you don't have him on your team, that's embarrassing. You don't want to win. He's only 84% owned, which means he's out there in leagues, at least in Yahoo. So go grab this man. He's not stopping. He's going against a tough Chicago defense next week, though. So
they're still giving up points.
They definitely are. But this could be the week where maybe the wheels fall off a little bit.
That's what everyone said yesterday.
No, I don't know. The Pittsburgh defense is nothing like a Chicago Khalil Mack. And especially, they were playing at home yesterday, whereas they're traveling into Chicago. I think this is going to be a rude awakening for Ryan Fitzpatrick. Luckily, though, they go into a bye week in Week 5, where I think they're going to give Ryan that opportunity again to get that team going. So it's going to be interesting to see what happens in Atlanta in Week 6 and if he can keep that starting job.
I mean,
with
Yahoo,
Jameis.
they have him projected not to start from this point forward, or after next week's game when Jameis is done with his suspension. And what sucks is, if he has a bad game against Chicago, Jameis might
very well
get that starting job.
Definitely.
So we'll have to watch out for that. But obviously, what he's doing, you have to pick him up if he's in there. And I mean,
and he's just trusting his receivers. He's just getting it to his receivers who are some of the best in the league and can make plays. But Dill, I want to talk more about these young bucks that have been just taking this league by storm, who we love. Let's get into someone who shocked the world this week on the Buffalo Bills beating the Minnesota Vikings. Who was the lead of that? Who led that charge?
So, Mr. Josh Allen from Wyoming, who everyone just was not super comfortable with, obviously. He came into Week 1 against the tough Baltimore defense, and he didn't do too bad. And then he got another chance against another tough LA Chargers defense. And once again, he threw a couple picks, but he threw for almost 250 yards and a touchdown. Yep. And then yesterday, going against one of the best defenses in the league,
arguably the best.
Besides the Rams, I was going to say the same thing, but the Rams obviously are the best. He tore him up. He didn't throw up crazy stat lines with only 1 touchdown, 196 pass yards. But let's talk about his 2 rushing touchdowns. On top of that, with 39 yards, 27, almost 28 fantasy points. I mean, this guy likes to run the ball. That is his biggest strength, and he can run the ball. His receivers are terrible. Kelvin Benjamin, I mean, he's disappointing on all levels right now. But the fact that he's running the way he is, and he's got such a strong arm, and he's been throwing the ball pretty well. I mean, 15 for 22 is not too bad, man. I mean, they talked about his accuracy being terrible. I've seen some pretty accurate balls from him in these last couple games. So, Josh Allen, definitely a young buck that's only 3% owned. I'm not saying pick him up, start him every single week, but put him on your roster and see what happens. You
this
never
is a guy,
know.
you got Jimmy Garoppolo going down. You have bye weeks coming at you. They got a favorable matchup, I hate to say, against Green Bay, but they've given up the 9th most fantasy points to quarterbacks. And this is a team that gave up 31 points to Alex Smith in the Redskins offense last week. And they run a really similar offense to the Bills. So with Josh Allen being even more mobile, I really see that being a favorable matchup this week, unfortunately. But I do think Green Bay gets the win overall. We know that. Let's talk about another young buck who's shocking the world, Mr. Baker Mayfield, who came back with a ridiculous comeback win, and I think he's going to be picked up after tomorrow on
First
every
win
single league.
in like 650 days.
Yeah,
so
that's huge.
I
He
give
made
him props.
history.
I mean, great efficiency, great accuracy. I mean, he did that throw to Jarvis when it was just right in the perfect spot where only Jarvis could get it. I mean, go get him.
Yeah, no, definitely. He's going to, and with all these bye weeks and stuff, he's going to be someone that's going to be a hot commodity this week.
Good
He
matchup.
Great matchup, and he threw for over 200 yards coming in late to that game. I mean, this guy's going to flourish, and I think everybody in this offense now has boosted up on their value. Carlos Hyde's value has risen. David Njoku's value, Jarvis Landry, Antonio Callaway, all those guys are going to be just way more valuable simply because of Baker Mayfield.
No, definitely. And, I mean, Baker Mayfield could potentially be a weekly starting quarterback, in my opinion. That offense is not that
He's
bad.
going to be last year's Deshaun Watson.
Yeah, definitely. And then once people figure him out, they're going to tear him up like they are with Deshaun Watson this year. But anyways, talk about another rookie. We got Mr. Josh Rosen. UCLA Bruin, baby. Rooting for him every day, every night, every year.
UCLA, fight.
Always supporting our UCLA boys. But Josh Rosen took over for Sam Bradford in the fourth quarter of the Cardinals game last week. And now he's going to get the start this week. Yeah, last week wasn't pretty. He played against a tough Chicago Bears defense trying to make a comeback. He threw a pretty good few good passes. Obviously, he threw that interception to kind of seal the deal, then took a sack at the end of the game to seal the deal. He had 2 opportunities, didn't do much with it, 1 point for fantasy, but he was 4 for 7. So I see him being pretty decent, especially, obviously Seattle's defense hasn't been amazing this year. They've given up a decent amount of points. Last game they did look pretty good against Dallas, though. But anyways, the week after that, they play San Francisco. San Francisco's defense does not look good whatsoever, especially with Richard Sherman going down.
Mm-hmm.
So maybe not, this might be a week to pick him up, see what he does against Seattle, then maybe start him against San Francisco the following week if he does well. But once again, just having a rookie quarterback coming in and starting, you don't know what you're going to get out of him. So he could potentially be a good player, or he could just suck and have a terrible year and you just drop him.
Yeah, well, I think coming into this week, he's going to have the starting role, so he's going to feel, I think, a lot more prepared going into this game. So instead of just getting thrown in like he did, even though Baker Mayfield got thrown in and look what he did, I expected Josh Rosen to come in and make something happen. But going into this week against Seattle, who has to travel to Arizona, the last 2 weeks before Seattle played at home, their defense looked like crap, in my opinion. So I'm thinking with them traveling again to Arizona, Josh Rosen has the ability to shred them up without a doubt. Being the starter, having Christian Kirk stepping up. Christian Kirk had 16 fantasy points on 7 targets for 90 yards. I definitely think these guys are definitely gonna emerge, and I think Josh Rosen is definitely worth a long-term pickup, in my opinion.
Oh, of course. And then obviously going into receivers, Christian Kirk. Definitely worth a pickup as well this week, especially with him and Rosen having chemistry during the rookie minicamp, and then going into preseason and being on that second team together, catching passes all preseason together. So look for Josh Rosen to look for
Christian Kirk.
Yep, definitely. And then we obviously talked about Calvin Ridley earlier. Once again, he is top guy to get this week. But talking about another receiver
who. Let me touch base on real quick.
Go ahead, talk to me.
I was preaching about Mr. John Ross, coming into this, and not to say that he was going to be the guy. I was looking at him more as a sleeper, a guy you can just stash and
Lots of potential.
have that. I looked at him like a Ridley, seeing him being like, okay, these guys can just flourish. Ridley, I think, has much more upside than John Ross now. But speaking of this Cincinnati Bengals team, a guy who has stepped up and flourished way more than Mr. John Ross and is just beasting these targets is Tyler Boyd. Tyler Boyd has scored the last 2 weeks and put it together all 3 weeks. He scored almost 30 fantasy points. He's killing it. He's definitely laying down the law, and he continues to improve week by week, man. He caught 6 passes on 7 targets for 132 yards and 1 touchdown. And the week before that, he had 9 targets, caught 6 as well for 91 yards and another touchdown. This guy's going off, and he's also going into Atlanta this week, who Atlanta's given up a ton of pass yards and pass touchdowns. So this is another week where I'm very comfortable starting Tyler Boyd. I've started him the last 2 weeks in daily fantasy, and I'm considering picking him up on all my leagues now and really deploying this guy in my starting lineup if I need to. Like I said, injuries and bye weeks rolling in. Tyler Boyd's a great addition to a team.
Especially with a great matchup. I mean, at this point, you got to start playing matchups, especially in that flex position, unless you're, stacked. But a lot of us aren't in competitive leagues, so you got on a weekly basis kind of switch up your flex and see what you got to do, especially with bye weeks.
Yeah.
So,
and talking about a guy who's less than 20% owned, go grab
super
him.
depressing. I picked him up before Sunday.
I saw that.
And ended up dropping him again right before Sunday because I just thought long term maybe Crowder would have more value during the season. But after, I don't know. I'm bummed I did that. But I did pick him up in a couple other leagues and have him, so I'm happy about that. And hopefully I'll get him in this league as well. But moving on to your boy, not really, someone that you hope doesn't play this weekend. But he looked pretty good in the limited opportunity he got. He didn't get tons of carries or anything, but he made the most of his opportunities.
Yeah, and Corey Clement, who was banged up a bit coming into this week as well. We're talking about a Wendell Smallwood on the Philadelphia Eagles. Definitely monitor Jay Ajayi because I think he's coming back this week. I think they're being super cautious with Jay Ajayi last week by holding him out. But Wendell Smallwood, he got end zone, red zone action, but with Darren Sproles and Jay Ajayi out, he definitely got an upbeat in everything he was doing. He got 10 rushing attempts, only had 56 yards, but scored a touchdown, and he got a nice 18 fantasy points out of that. You cannot complain. I mean, that's a great day for your flex position who you took a flyer on, or a waiver on. So definitely think this is a guy that moving forward you need to be cautious with due to when Darren Sproles comes back, when Clement's healthy, when Ajayi's back. So he could go right back to number 4 and be fantasy irrelevant, but as long as there's injuries in this backfield, which there are prone to be, he's going to be a key part of this offense. And not only can he run the ball, but he's a great pass catcher out of the backfield. We know he's in my opinion, a Darren Sproles 2.0. So I really like what Wendell Smallwood brings, and they have that running back depth, but it's all about injuries in that backfield. So be cautious when grabbing him. He'd be a little lower on my waiver priorities.
Yeah. Another
Another guy that I think would be a little higher on my waiver priorities due to an injury is Mr.
Chris Ivory. He didn't blow up the stat sheets, but he did enough to get you enough points. When you catch the ball, three catches for 70 yards, that's going to give you 10 points right off the bat.
Yep.
And then you get 20 rushing attempts for 56 yards. That's another 5.5 points.
So you're almost at 20.
Yeah. So we got 15.5 points for touches. For opportunity. That's what you're looking for. And in this Bills offense, they're obviously going to need to run the ball to help out with Josh Allen being at quarterback. So if LaShawn McCoy doesn't play next week, then I would go get Chris Ivory. I mean, he's definitely worth a pickup if you have an extra spot on your bench just to have on there just in case LaShawn doesn't play. Then you can obviously utilize him. But if LaShawn plays, he's a nobody, obviously.
And I think LaShawn's going to get tied up with some legal actions here pretty soon as well, with his ex-wife or whatever coming out and saying something about child abuse now. I mean, there's a lot going on with LaShawn McCoy on top of injuries, so this guy, he might, if LaShawn McCoy plays another game or two, maybe he's not fantasy relevant, but as soon as something pops off with LaShawn McCoy, Chris Ivory's going to be the guy to own. Last week, Chris Ivory played as well, a little bit, mind you. He didn't get much. He did get the touchdown out of that backfield, though, and secured 10 points. So the guy's definitely a decent start. Only when LaShawn McCoy's not around, though. But I think long-term value, if McCoy's not going to play and going to be involved in some stuff, Chris Ivory's going to be the guy to own and going to be an RB2 on your fantasy team, possibly.
Especially if you are a LaShawn McCoy owner, why not go grab him?
Handcuff all
Why
day.
not
You'd be
go grab
crazy
him?
not
So-
to, Mr. Micah Step. But anyways, let's get into another guy here, Dill.
Last but not least on
that is
our
last
waiver.
but not least by any means. This guy is, in a RBBC, and in my opinion, I think everybody's opinion. Coach McCarthy even came out and said that this is a team that they really like what they have with their rotation. Green Bay Packers. I'm looking at Ty Montgomery with an Aaron Rodgers who's obviously injured. He's doing everything he can to get that ball out of his hand in less than 2 seconds, it feels like. He's just trying to dump off, and let, 2 to 3 step drop, throw it down deep. But this man had 7 targets. He caught 6 of his 7 targets for 48 yards in the Packers' Week 3 loss to the Redskins. Like I said, Aaron Rodgers is going to be dumping this ball off to Ty Montgomery. So
Guys.
I think with that value of being able to get that PPR work, I think Ty Montgomery is definitely someone that you should watch, in my opinion.
No, for sure. And, also out there is his playmate. Obviously, I think Aaron Jones is owned in a lot more leagues. But in some leagues, you got Jamal Williams out there.
Definitely.
And so with the RBBC, obviously, I think that Ty Montgomery is worth to have just because he's that pass-catching back. But in the fact of Aaron Jones is a better runner than Jamal Williams. So
Much better runner.
I just think, I don't know.
And it's funny because as soon as they started getting Aaron Jones to rock, everyone on the sideline is like, okay, this is our boy. This is our boy.
And he runs so hard, breaks tackles, like
It's hard to tackle. He reminds me of a Dalvin Cook. He's just
Oh, for sure.
he's so hard to tackle and just always runs downhill and gets those positive yards. And that's why you've seen Jamal Williams carries get cut by 2/3 at least. He is literally he's going to start getting taken down to that backfield. And I think it's going to be Aaron Jones on the first couple downs, Ty Montgomery on 3rd down, and Jamal Williams plugging in when he needs to or when guys get tired.
what I've heard a lot is that they love him for his pass blocking ability to be able to protect Aaron Rodgers in that backfield. But I know they love Ty Montgomery for that stuff too. So,
But I think with all 3 of them, they got fresh legs
for
like
sure.
we were talking about. So he's going to be smart about it and be playing all of them routinely. So those are, a couple last guys that I definitely think are worth looking at. And with, again, injuries and bye weeks popping up like crazy, you're going to start needing to dive into this waiver wire. So here's some guys that you definitely should be picking up. But on another note, where can we be found, Dale?
www.dleaguefantasyfootball.wordpress.com. Also, we started posting all of our podcasts on SoundCloud. So also go follow us on SoundCloud at The League Podcast. And also, on our website, we got all of our social media, like I said. So go follow us on social media at The League Podcast for Facebook and Instagram. And then also on Twitter at The League Pod. Sundays, check us out. Send us your requests. Send us your starts, sits. Send us trade requests throughout the week. See what you guys, or we'll give you guys what you need.
Definitely.
Whatever you guys need.
See if that trade value is actually there. We'll get you covered on everything fantasy football. Look forward to talking about these matchups coming up this weekend, Dill. All of our starts, sits, and all that good stuff. So you'll see us on our next podcast. You better listen in. Over and out.
Over and out.
What did I do? What did I do? The league, huh?